Do it. All right, we're here. Bettsworth Golf, 125th edition of America's Championship, U.S. Open, Oakmont. Andy, have you taken in enough thick, rough content over the last 2 weeks, 24 hours?
I can never get enough. Honestly, the rough is going to be nasty. But, I mean, it's not like there aren't spots on a bunch of golf courses we play all the time where it's like, this isn't really this is a pitch out. There's a tree. There's multiple trees. There's, shit in the way. This isn't an angle I can take. This is a 50-yard pitch out. There's going to be some spots where you're just going straight sideways here, I guess. And that sucks. It's basically losing a stroke. But it's the same as going out of bounds, I guess. Like it's the same thing. You lost a stroke. And that's what's going to happen in some of these spots where this rough is so thick and nasty. If you were inaccurate and off into the woods, off into the grass, there aren't any woods. There's no oak at Oakmont, guys. But I think the most interesting and scary part about this course is these greens.
Oh yeah,
because it's a weird combo for me. And one of these things sounds like a positive, and I think it often can be, but not if you combine it with the other part. And the thing I'm talking about is the size. 8,000, 8,500, huge greens. So think about your game or think about watching some of these guys and, how crazy it is that they're able to lag putt from like 100 feet. It's just like, wow, 6-incher left. I could never do that. I'm just not good enough. It's amazing. We're going to see some of that. We'll see plenty of that, but there's going to be some bad lag putts here because these things, and then the other thing, the speed, the combination of size of the greens and the speed. So yeah, the greens are huge. They're not going to be as hard to hit, but they're so fast that it's going to really make, bad approach shots that still land on the green, basically still a bad approach shot. Like, hey, you hit it on the green, it's a long ways away. And these things are slick, lightning fast, and there's a little bit of movement on this, and it's going to be really hard to tell exactly where this ball is going if you hit it the wrong speed. It might end up off the green. And I think that's going to be, the Brian right now, if you're listening to podcast form, brought up the course metrics on Bettsworth Golf. Your PGA Tour average for 3-putt avoidance, 2.8. Oakmont, 6.7. Not quite, not triple, but 2.5 times your average rate for 3 putting here. It's going to be a big problem. And I think that has to be a big part of the conversation where, all I've seen on Twitter all week was it's like the old Miller Lite commercials, great taste, less filling. And they're fighting about it. Distance, accuracy, distance, no accuracy. Like they're both important. They're both super important here because, if you're not accurate, you're going to end up pitching out of the grass sideways. And if you're not long, you're going to have a long shot into a firm, fast green. That said, I didn't listen to both of his podcasts this week yet, but I did listen to Andy talk to Steve Bamford, Andy Lack, that is. And he went over Dustin Johnson's club selection hole by hole at Oakmont last time, which was fun. If you're long and you keep it in the fairway, there's a ton of wedges here. Like you can have success. I think a lot of the issues are going to be just keeping those 3 putts away and then not having just murder holes where you go rough, pitch out, suddenly you're chipping from the fringe of the green for par or for bogey at that point. And you're wondering, is this a 6, 7, 8? What are we doing here? There can be some bad blow up holes at a course like this. And I think that's kind of the whole thing is just finding a guy who can grind out par for 3 days.
I can think of a guy who's pretty good about that.
Yeah, to his point, I wasn't bringing up DJ as someone who has a shot. It was just interesting to hear what DJ used for his club selection because, back then, DJ was, I don't know, who's the longest driver of the ball at that point?
It was DJ. He led the
I mean, he
field.
was top 5 if he wasn't number 1.
That week he led the field in, I believe, driving distance, scrambling, and approach, or greens and reg. And I think there's like one other instance ever of someone doing that, and it was Eldrick. So rarefied air that week for him to kind of separate really in the end. 5 under, as the penalty stroke finishes at 4 under. Won by margin. He was the best player in the world, just making up for his 2015 putting disaster
class, yeah,
for Spieth. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I did the video yesterday, like, because I thought, like, it's putting, like, not that putting, but, like, to your point, lag putting. These are massive greens, but the undulation is something that the TV doesn't do a good job of picking up. But if you have consumed any YouTube content here on or watching previous iterations, I watched back Sunday of 2007 with Cabrera. There's lots of different things that you can watch for the 2016 version with DJ that we're talking about. So and then again, so many different folks in the content space went out for media day, took part. Bryson's video was very telling and fun to take in.
Yeah, if you haven't watched that, it's funny. Like, of all the podcasts and things you can do to prep, watching Bryson's video, even chunks of it's kind of telling on how the things might play. And we'll get to the weather eventually, but I mean, that might be the only differentiator is the weather.
Well, that was a big factor in 2016 too. Was softer, and I think we might have some of that here. And looks like a lot of rain on the weekend, which makes it play a little bit longer. So yeah, look, tastes great, less filling. It's a little bit of both, right? You don't have to necessarily pick a lane. I think you're going to see different approach, different strategies off the tee for different players. You're going to see, it was very clear too, of watching the Bryson video. He's just going to take the head cover off as much as possible. That's kind of his style. And you're going to have some other guys that just aren't going to mess around with that as much on some holes, and they're going to play conservatively. And you play conservatively and lay up, and all of a sudden you're also in danger. Then that's where you can get in trouble. You start to force yourself to take off a little bit more than you could chew, and all of a sudden you're not only was your layup shot from the rough, your second shot's from the rough, and all of a sudden you're trying to avoid double here. So I'm with you. The approach putting thing is pretty massive. So it's going to be a test. I think the soft conditions are going to put us probably in the red numbers, which is maybe a little bit unfortunate, but I don't think it's going to get out of hand where you're going to have a bunch, and we're not getting double digits here. We're getting a low single digit under par winner would be my guess right now if I had to line it. I haven't seen a line for a score, but I'd imagine that's probably where it's going to be.
Yeah, the weather is going to be so big, and I do wonder if, we've seen this course in the past, and we've seen how it plays differently based on the weather. But with the sub-air now, isn't rain bad both ways? Because it's going to make the course play longer since you're not going to get the rollout. Maybe you get a little more of a relaxed fairway where you're not getting nasty bounces off into the rough. But it's going to be playing really long if it's wet. And the greens can still play at 14. They can suck all the moisture out of those. So, often the thing you get with rain is like, well, the greens are really receptive because it rained, and it's a lot easier to stick some darts here. But I'm not 100% sure we get that because they can still just throw the sub-air on, high level or what. I don't know if I have no idea if there's like different levels. I've never
11.
These go to 11. I've never operated a sub-air system, but they could turn the greens into as dry as they want essentially anyway. I guess if it's raining during the round, maybe not, but
yeah.
I still think, the winner's like 2 under.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in that range where I think that's kind of where we get to, but you still could have a 8 over cut. And it's 60 in ties, not 65 in ties. Yep. So it's a little bit of a different element here this week as well. Scotty Scheffler, thoughts? What do we do, Andy?
I mean, it's a
You're
tough
coming to
number
it
to
new.
bet.
You come into it new. You got no, no futures, no nothing. He's sub 3.
That's the thing. It's a full field, and I think a nasty course like this invites variance. Oftentimes we'll say tough courses will separate the best golfers, and the best golfers will rise to the top. I think that's on a normal, like, hey, this course is tough because of positioning and strategy, but not when it's just this is tough from agronomy and the nasty fast greens. Like, there's still a high variance, I think, even for the really good players here. And I think we're going to see some big names miss the cut. It happens every major. You have some people that miss the cut. Obviously, you do make the cut parlays. It happens every week. You know this. At least one guy. It's always one guy,
usually
but
never more than one. It's just always
never.
one.
It's usually just the one.
Yeah, it's just the
But that's what I'm saying. I'm fine shooting my shot with some long shots here. Not crazy. Like, they still have to have
like to win the golf tournament, like down the board.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, I'm Harris English to win the golf tournament.
Okay.
I know some people are betting Cam Young. I was cheering for him, man. I said this to someone else. I was literally cheering for him when he had like 250 out to set up a birdie putt. He could have set up an eagle putt,
No.
Eagle, like a 30-foot eagle putt to win, where it still had to have some reasonable lag to it to be, maintaining the hopes of a playoff. And he hit it just 20 yards deep. And then he blamed the ball and the club and everything else afterwards too. He's just mad. Like, I think you were just too fucking amped up, and you hit. It's like when you're playing PGA 2K and you hit the ball 105%. It just kind of rips. I think that's kind of what we got there. And I don't know that he has the intestinal fortitude to win a tournament. It's crazy. Some guys just golf is played in the 6 inches between your ears often, and never on display as much as that shot. And then the chip, it's hard to like say that was a bad screw up and that was mental. That's an incredibly hard shot, especially with what he had to try to do with it. But it added comedy to the tragedy at that point. Yeah, I'm fine taking some long shots, but I also do think, you can bet Bryson. If you really think this is a Bryson track and he's going to stay out of trouble and he's going to stay accurate, I don't know. Maybe the long irons are. I don't know that it's so long that the long iron stuff is going to affect him that negatively. And he's a great putter. He's an electric putter. So I think it matches up well here. You can talk me into Rahm. You can talk me into Rahm just looking at stats. Now how he's played over the last few majors. I know some of that is like weekend. I'm not in contention, but I'm rising up the leaderboard. He just hasn't put a full 4 rounds together at a major, and he's still top 10 to them both, I believe. So I mean,
big 3-round guy.
Yeah, he's a big 3-round guy. The jokes write themselves. But yeah, I'm deciding between the guys at the top of the board if there's a Rahm or a Bryson ticket for me. Rory is weird because of the driver stuff, and I wonder if he's a little checked out mentally. It's so.
He told us he was. He said it.
I mean, yeah. Think about a video game, or like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy for everyman, where it's like you spend like 100 hours beating Final Fantasy 1. And you finally do it. Because, I mean, you got to grind that. Actually, Final Fantasy 1, you got to grind that thing for like 200-300 hours to beat it. You finally do it. And you're like in the zone. And then, like, do you really want to play that game after you beat it anymore? Like, you just spent, in his case, a decade grinding for the same goal. I'm sure he has other goals each year, but that was it. The ultimate goal. Like, doesn't it feel like a little bit of senioritis? Like, I can
1000%. He said
lose focus. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he said it. It looks like it. The driver thing adds to it, and it's hard. It's super hard to like. It's hard to write him off because it's another track that plays to his strengths. But right now, it's really hard to like bet Rory. I'd be more comfortable betting Rory at 8-1 after the first round if he looks focused than it is betting him at like 15 now.
I think there's some nice live opportunities in this field because of the big numbers that'll populate and some of the wild swings you'll see. I think this is actually a pretty good live spot, especially for, if you have a guy you like at the top of the board, you're maybe a little hesitant price wise. I think there'll be some opportunities to swoop in and get some bigger numbers. So yeah, I think that's a good shout there too. Yeah, the Rory stuff's tough. Yeah. I mean,
but that's what I'm saying. I'd be willing to take a huge discount on his price after I've seen like, hey, he came in and he looks focused again. His mind is back in the game. He does want to win this major. Because I mean, we've seen it at a major, we've seen it at just another tournament. It's been a tough hang. And yeah, he's kind of crossed off at the moment for me, I believe.
Yeah. I almost aggregated myself because I was talking about it on the Golf Digest pod yesterday, where I just basically at 12-1 said I felt like Rory was unbettable in a way at that number. And of course, they used it for the headline for their article that they posted for the podcast that Rory is unbettable. So, I just think the price is really, really tough comparatively. Obviously, he's fantastic. Meant to see someone in the chat. They got a boost, taking that number up to almost 20. That's fantastic. That's a different discussion than what I was talking about yesterday at 10-1 and shorter and even some other places. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm interested in some bets down the board. You referenced a couple that I'm very much interested in. But to me, those are either finishing position bets or they're maybe each ways. And I know that's not for everyone.
It has to be paired with I think it has to be paired. I don't have each way stuff.
Right.
I'm going to, just because of I believe Harris English can win this tournament. I'm going to bet it at that price. Small. But yeah, I absolutely am going to be doing the top 10, top 20 as well kind of thing for it.
Yeah. So the Bryson stuff's interesting. I did a putting model that I shared yesterday on Twitter. I love the questions in the chat. Yes, we'll get to all that for sure. Ask any questions. And if there's anything you want to see data-wise, we could pop it up here and show it for sure. In the data model that I did for putting, I basically looked at, let me pull it up. I did baseline putting. Then I did everything through the lens of very fast greens. And, to your point, I think those things are massively impactful this week. Let me look here. Oakmont putting model. All right. So looked at, you can click into this and get a sense of what everything is. So strokes gained putting, fast greens last 2 years. 3-putt avoidance. We saw those numbers. 2.5, 3x your 3-putt. Rates versus a standard tour average event, because these are big greens. A lot of those are going to be lag putting. So these are 2 lag putting metrics: 3-putt avoidance from 25 plus feet, and then approach putting, which is basically telling you specifically how close your ball is to the hole on your second putt. Not surprising to see Cam Young here, or Cam Smith. I'm sorry, Denny, Riley, Burns, absolute just baseline studs always in putting. Bud Cauley is a name that I would like to discuss. Harris English, to your point.
I think Bud Cauley's a great DFS play.
He's $6,100. He's a fantastic.
You got to be sprinkling him in.
Bud Cauley, legit profile, hits it further than you think. There's some good ball striking numbers and difficult ball strikings. Bud Cauley's very interesting this week. Andrew, look who's 8th on the putting model.
Scotty Scheffler.
Not what people want to see, right? If you're out here making a case,
we talked about this a couple weeks back, didn't we?
He's almost gaining a half stroke on the field over the last 50 rounds or so. And now we, throw in some specific fast conditions and stuff. He's 6th. Now, again, I know the sample is tough for Bryson because, the live stuff gets a little bit, a little wonky. But you see Rahm sitting here with a little decent sample, really solid 3-putt avoidance on fast greens. It was surprising because I do think of Bryson as a good putter. The lag putting stuff isn't great. Showing some people some other names. Here's some of the lag putting stuff on Bryson. Again, sample's a little different. Overall, strong putter. When you watch that video too, it's so calculated. It's so, all right, this is 27. It's uphill. So I'm hitting at 29. But there's just a little bit less of a like feel and art to it sometimes. And then maybe it's, he'll make some of these bombs, but there's some times where having to, sweat out and watch a Quail Hollow, there were a lot of makeable putts that I was frustrated that he wasn't, dropping too. So he does not profile well in this, which is surprising. Again, even though I do think of Bryson as a, excellent putter, this did not work in Bryson's favor. Whereas Mr. Scheffler, it boded very well for him. So it caught me by surprise live when I was doing the video because I did not run it ahead of time. And I was like, oh shit. But again, I'm on Scotty this week. Big numbers previously. I've touched on that. Grabbed it live, parlayed Memorial. I'm a little out over my skis unit size wise, so I don't even know what to do. But I'm probably going to dip my toes into some without Scotty Rahm, without Scotty Bryson. For smaller size bets, because I don't think there are a lot of guys that can win this golf tournament. I think there are a lot of guys that can compete, but for 72 holes with this test, I think the pool of actual winners is pretty small. So the Harris Englishes of the world, the Bud Colleys of the world, some other guys that I'm interested, those are going to be either each ways or finishing positions, depending on what the math tells me it should be. So, it could be just prisoner of the moment where we're seeing these big guys win, the majors all the time. And Sky didn't do anything sexy at Memorial. He just didn't do anything bad. I think that's what this demand is going to be too, right? It's just, you just talk about grinding par. Who can grind par better than Scotty Scheffler? I mean, literally nobody.
When's the last time we had a funny winner, a non-elite name? Was it Harmon?
Harmon, I guess you would say. Yeah, Harmon and Wyndham.
I mean, you had two in a row. You had Harmon and Clark.
Yep.
That were kind of surprises, but then you went. I mean, who won that Open then?
That was Harmon was the Open.
You mean Harmon was the Open? Yeah.
And Clark was the U.S. Open.
Yep. So then we went Harmon to the Open, and then the next year it went Scotty, Augusta, Bryce.
No, this was last year, right?
Yes. Yeah, last year was Xander, Scotty, Bryson.
Yeah.
This year has been Rory, Scotty. Yeah, it's been maybe we're due. Harris English, it is step up, buddy. It is your time. Tommy Fleetwood.
I like the Harris English thing. It's gotten beat up in the market. I think a lot of people have it as a good long shot. Harris English has already won a long, difficult golf course, right, at Torrey South. Yeah. So it makes a ton of sense. Is Brooks playing that bad?
He is. He tied with the kid who pissed in the creek on Live this week, guys. Here's something. So I don't know how well this is vetted or sourced, but this has come from someone who has talked to somebody who was on the course. I don't know if it was warm-ups this week or if it was Live Virginia, but it sounds like Brooks might have a knee injury. Is what this comes from, like the Brooks Koepka tracker Twitter account, guys. The injuries are so hard to find in you almost have to be like talking to someone who's at a practice round or someone who went to Live and like watched him. Because even if you're watching on TV, you're not seeing everything. You're seeing him stand over a putt. Standing over a putt isn't hard. Getting down and the thing that they've talked about, and somebody tweeted about this actually a month ago with Brooks, was watching him get down to read putts. He looked really uncomfortable, like his knees were going again. And if that is the case, I told somebody who loves Brooks this morning, and I said, I would be so happy if it were an injury and he could just rehab it, because it's a much better explanation than he's just washed. Because he's been horrible so far. He hasn't been very good on Live. And if he has some knee injuries and he's struggling and you're playing where you're you go to the doctors and 1 through 10, what's your injury level? If he's just constantly at a 3 or a 4, that sucks. Like that sucks. You don't sleep well. You're not rested. You can't lift properly. You can't train. Like if he's injured, that makes sense, I guess. And from everything I've seen, and if that's true, I can't touch him even at these numbers.
I don't have any interest. We just haven't seen it. We've just been, and it's been so long since we've really seen it. And he's.
I'll say something to pump you the fuck up, but if I'm playing at somebody at 80-1, it's going to be Keegan Bradley.
Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, I know. I usually try to talk you out of Keegan, but Keegan's playing well, and if you want somebody in that range, I get it. It's not multi-major winning Brooks Koepka, who's been doing it for a long time. It's Keegan, who's the stupid punchable face and always looks surprised. But yeah, Keegs is going to be a great DFS play for sure. And he might be another one where it's like, I got to play this guy like top 10, top 20 for sure. Because he is well suited. He is well suited for this course, and his form is, I don't want to say never been better, because it has been in his career, but never been better for a while. Like Keegs is playing decent.
High ball flight, hold these greens. These things matter. So yeah, I'm obviously in on iterations of Keegan. I haven't made the bets yet, but it will be Keegan tickets some way, shape, or form. I think it was Matt in the chat. Again, keep firing any questions you have here. Matt wants to look at Ludwig chipping. Is that a concern? And Matt's asked some other chipping questions, and I think it's great. So it's a combination here. So there are, again, one of the things that I think is the most impactful piece of this course. We touched on the greens and the rough, and it's just the undulation that doesn't show up in a lot of things. And there's some false fronts that are absolutely brutal, where these greens are sloping massively back to front. You're going to see that, that ball that maybe lands really close to the hole on approach and then just doesn't make its way to the right tier, or had maybe a little bit too much backspin and just comes flying off the green. And there's some other spots where it is completely encased in the thick, lush, rough that you're going to have. So it's going to have a combination of chipping from all of it. And I think really using the rabbit hole to look at chipping and scrambling on fast greens is really important too. So let's play around with this for a minute here. Let's take a look here. So you go to around the green in the view section, and you can kind of mess around with some of these different things. And I really do think it is important to look at fast greens, because that matters a ton here. So we'll go into filter by conditions, and we got long rough, and we got fast greens. I could find where my green speeds. All right. And so you're going to have the scrambling. And again, scrambling's got an element of putting in it too, and I think that's an important piece, because I do want to, look at scrambling more than say around the green proximity or around the green, because there's so much variance in hacking it from the rough that it's not like let's see how soft those hands are. Let's see what kind of shots you can make happen. It's mostly, who can kick it out of there. So let's get a bigger sample. Let's go last 12 months, see if we get anything here that makes sense. Still pretty small. We'll go back. Because, the around the green stuff for Ludwig, and spent a ton of time on the side hill there in Canada, really ruined his week for the most part. Otherwise, he come back around a little bit. But that's been kind of the downfall of his game so far, right? If you're looking for a flaw in Ludwig's game, it would be that. So scrambling from the rough, with long rough and fast greens last 2 years. We'll kind of sample out some of these small Guido, Ben Jameses of the world. Ben James is going to be a dude sometime soon. The kid can play. I don't expect him to get it done this week, though, necessarily. Let's see. Bridgman. And Bridgman's had some smallish sample, but he's kicked around here in some AM tournaments for a while. Hideki's been really good here. Doug Gim, Rory, Russ, another one that I have some interest in this week. Adam Scott, Sanjay, Scotty Scheffler, Bryson on a smaller sample, but is here. There's Zach Blair. And let's look at Ludwig specifically. It's not that bad. Scrambling. All this is, these sand saves are pretty good. This is a decent sample for Ludwig too. So overall around the green isn't great, but this is encouraging. If you, wanted to have some Ludwig on your ticket this week, this is probably better than I think most would expect. Good putter on fast greens. That's what's showing up here.
It's kind of like the argument when you're making like a negative argument for a running back. You'd be like, oh, you take away that 80-yard touchdown run, he averaged like 1.6 per carry. It's like, yeah, but that's his game.
Right.
And also, like, even if it wasn't, it's hard. That's a dumb argument. And it's hard to make that stick. And there's so many other factors. It's kind of the same thing with like looking at Ludo's, the whole of his numbers. You take away some of the stuff from Canada. You take away the 17th at Augusta. And it's like, you can't take those away, though. You can't take them. Those happened. Those were problems. But if you were able to sort that out, like, he's been very good otherwise.
Yeah.
And, some of that stuff is really going to make him look bad because you're losing multiple strokes on a single hole around the green, which is tough for your numbers.
Took multiple hacks to get off that side hill lie, which is tough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he's appealing. That's, you make some decisions and people decide what they want to do in terms of, without markets. But Hatton, interesting in each way, top Euro market.
Somebody else asked about Hatton for DFS. Not a guy we get to talk about a lot, but he's sneaky. He might be the third best live player.
Yeah, he's not been as good as of late. Lost strokes, ball striking, both categories in Virginia. Did the same with the PGA. Was very much in the mix. Had ejected eventually the PGA. Had a nice run, kind of the tail end last year, and then through the start of the year. Look, these are the type of courses that I liked for Ty Hatton when he was on the PGA Tour. Right, like long, straight ball striking, fantastic driver of the golf ball. I do think that there is a problem with his composure, right? And that we can't measure it. It's not in the rabbit hole. I cannot put strokes gain, keep your shit together, and model it. But he just can't. He doesn't. And this place is going to jump up and bite him a couple times. And everything you hear about this course, and you even said it, like it's 6 inches between your ears. You have to think about the next shot. You have to forget about the last one, right? And Xander talked about it at length in his presser yesterday. You can't compound issues by trying to take off more than you could chew after making a mistake. You just have to take the mistake, and maybe all of a sudden your goal for this hole is bogey, and you can't blow up, and then you can't take that bogey to the next tee box. And I know it's a narrative that can be played out, but he consistently shows that to us. So it's really hard for me to want to trust and back him, even though, this is a tough comp course. But yeah, maybe there's a little Bay Hill, right? It's, a longish, par 70 here, but, length per par. It's the rough is thick at Bay Hill, maybe not 5 inches thick. There's fast greens at Bay Hill, right? He won there. He's played well at those types of courses. So I get why someone would be there. It's just not a bet or a click that I want to make. I haven't gone through DFS super intently yet. So I think that was the question specifically too, is he, is he a DFS viable play? Yeah, for sure. But he's not someone that I'm like prioritizing to put in my player pool and be overexposed to, because he just is going to frustrate you because he's going to get frustrated. And that's tough for me. Good golfer though, Andy.
Yeah, I love him. I don't have a strong opinion this week because, like you said, I kind of came into the year thinking I might bet Hatton at a couple majors this year because of how I thought about him and how he, his 24 went and like his ceiling. But yeah, it hasn't been. I guess it hasn't been there in the results, and especially maybe at a course like this that. I mean, he's just, for you guys with kids, he's the anger guy from Inside Out. Like, he's fine most of the time, and then he just gets really angry, and
yeah,
it can affect his game. So,
Yeah, I touched on this last week because we went to a new course that we hadn't seen, TBC Toronto. And
did you give your thoughts on that? You want to do a 10-second thoughts on that?
what's that?
TPC Toronto? Because they're playing again next year, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It works.
It sucked.
No, it
right?
did. It did.
Like
You called it.
It wasn't great.
Yeah. But
There's so many good courses up there. Like,
but Golf Canada relocated, and yeah, they're stuck there. But the similar thought, to the Toronto piece was when you're seeing a course that you don't see all the time, the way to kind of approach it, and this goes back to your tastes great, less filling piece. Last week I kind of just said, hey, I'm making a decision, and I think the right answer is distance. So we're going to lean on distance guys. Build the card of distance guys. Cam Young had some Sunday smoke. Ryan Fox got over the line for me. It was great. I think this is the same piece where this week, outside of to win discussions, placement bets, DFS player pool, I think the right way to do it is to kind of skill stack. And that's, again, I don't play high volume DFS like, a lot. I'm not max entering. I'll have 3 to 5 lineups and I'll put those in some big contests, some smaller contests. I'm not putting a ton of resources to DFS every week. But I think you should kind of mix and blend it out, right? If it is a week where accuracy is massively rewarded, you should have lineups that reflect that, or placement bets that reflect that. If it is going to be the Lowry, Connors, Russ type of skill, put that together. Right? We wave stack, but I think skill stacking in terms of placement bets or DFS makes a ton of sense. And the same thing, right? If it ends up being a spot where like, hey, we're going to lean on distance, and I think distance is the key here, and distance has a massive trend line at US Opens of being the most impactful skill set. Let's do that. Let's line up the dudes that are going to be able to get, carry distance, the Cam Youngs of the world. We're going to go back to those guys that, can carry it out there. Big Tone is getting some helium, which I think makes some sense in the market. Back a low owned Rory, the Sam Stevens of the world. Some of these guys where you're like, oh, okay, they're, super cheap. Sam Stevens, $5,900. Skill stacking, I think matters a ton too. So I think that's kind of an interesting piece of it this week, because we don't know. So I think having some, pretending that you're covering your bases, you're going to have some dead lineups, and then you're going to have some lineups that maybe can fly up the leaderboard because, you have the way that it's playing is accuracy is massively rewarded, for instance. So that's kind of how I'm approaching some of these placement bets and this, player pool building from a DFS standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, and we talked about this a little in the Discord with when I bet Luda the other week, and somebody asked me about it and said, do you really think? I'm like, well, if he plays well, he can win, but the way he's playing, he could also super miss the cut. Like, this isn't I should bet Luda to top 20 or top 10. This is I bet him to win or nothing, because he isn't going. If it's not there, it's just not there for him. There are guys that, you talk about this so much in like fantasy football, like floors and ceilings, or even just football analysis, any sport, honestly, floors and ceilings. And there are guys with different floors and ceilings. And sometimes it changes based on how they're playing. Like when a guy's playing shitty, he, those move around, or guys who don't need to play themselves into form. Hideki Matsuyama, who just suddenly plays really well. And, it's like, he's been kind of ho-hum. He's been fiddling with his clubs. He tested out 75 different 3-woods this week. Yeah. And you never know.
Roy's like that too a little bit. Roy's got that.
Yeah, and then just, oh, Jesus. He's making all his putts. He's hitting it pure this week. Like, think about guys like that and think about how you want to bet them, because obviously it's about price too. God, I can't believe no one has brought up JT yet. Allie brings up Allie, I don't know. You can say it both ways. JT
did not model well for me.
I don't think this is JT course. Like, I think he's gonna have a bad time. Yeah, he's played better, and we've seen him play really well this year and win a tournament. Doesn't feel like a good course for him.
Did you build a model? Do we have an Andrew model in here?
Not yet.
Okay.
It's coming this afternoon.
Yeah, it's
I don't know. This is a tough one to model. There's no comps. Everyone, I've listened to, like I said, I listen to Andy, I listen to you guys, I listen to us talk. Like we're trying to comp. There's no comp for this course.
it's not a good comp.
There is no, there isn't a good, hey, this is what you'd play. This is what you'd look at if you want to look at similar courses. Like for Christ's sakes, Bamford was looking at like Kapalua, and he was trying to make cases for just like how the field plays a certain course or how the flow of a field, and like he was going all over the place. And, they mentioned Wingfoot and a few Olympic, and I get it, but even, Andy and Bamford kind of agreed, like it's hard to comp this course to anything.
It is. I think so too. There's Memorial, I think, is a decent comp. Wingfoot's a decent comp. Yeah, it is kind of a unique thing. That's why
that's the problem when you throw in like Wingfoot and Olympic or Ron it's just courses where you have so little data because they never play there.
Correct. Yeah. So that's why for me, I pulled up my model here. If you're watching with us live, we have a difficult, very difficult, average. We have a big enough sample of 2 years of just very difficult, and I just went very difficult the last 2 years in overall scoring conditions. It's a difficult ball striking test as well. I also did very difficult, and very strong fields in very long golf courses. Because again, not a very long golf course, but it is on the long side. Again, 7,400 yard par 70. Ball striking, again, this is where it's difficult to gain on approach. It's difficult to gain off the tee. I think that's a really, really, really important piece this week. Combinations of total driving, distance accuracy, edge of the fairway, rolling approach, some of the scrambling stuff and putting stuff that I modeled elsewhere. Good drive percentage for sure. This one was interesting to me. This is one of the ones that I think is a good spot to kind of comb through some sleepers. Who's played well ball striking when the ball striking test has been its hardest? So Sepp has been a guy that's been very popular. Shane Lowry is second in this as well. Lowry, again, if you remember, had the lead heading into Sunday the last time we were here. Morikawa was interesting. What are your thoughts on Morikawa, where we stand with him? Because he should be really, in the mix if it is going to be an accuracy test. Just hasn't been playing particularly well. If we go to his recent player page.
Yeah, and that's what's tough at this price. Like 25, same thing with it's the conversation we have with Neiman every major. Like, are we betting Neiman at this price?
Won again. Yeah, I know.
What are we doing? But maybe he's got his yellow card now on his Wikipedia page. So maybe
I don't use Wikipedia enough for golf because I hear that referenced all the time, and I'm like, I'm never on Wikipedia for golf information, but apparently getting your color on the Wikipedia page is a big thing. That's I'm like in that. I know what it is.
Have you seen the chart?
I've seen the chart now. Yes, I've seen screenshots and stuff.
I mean, there's a lot of shitty golfers that have yellow. They just luck into a top 8, and they get a yellow here or there. And Neiman, it was yellowless. He just couldn't do it. And so now that he's off the schneid, maybe he plays better. But yeah, the price range, there's a bunch of guys I really hate. Like, I'm not playing Neiman 25, 28. Luda is a little scary for me here. Colin, I'm certainly not. Xander's even lower. I don't think he's played well enough this year to.
Yeah, he hasn't. And I just
for me, at 20.
Yeah, I bet him at the Masters. I bet him at the PGA. Taking the week off of Xander at numbers that again, it's a great number. This is Colin. I don't want to overreact to small sample theater. 12 rounds, losing on approach. It's not been great. Ball striking down markedly as well. Just has not really been super competitive. The around the green stuff has been pretty bad for the last little bit. Again, that can be noisy, but there's more red on Colin page as of late. caddy change, a lot going on, and the run leading up to it was just so good. So a little bit of interest again, if it ends up being a spot where distance doesn't matter as much and you're keeping yourself in play. His putting is, improved overall. You can see some decent putting numbers even of late. That's an interesting one to me. So, but then you get down in here. This one jumped out to me. I mentioned it briefly earlier. Bud Cauley's got a big number. 250 to win, again, and not the withouts. Bud Cauley is playing really well. Again, this is tied for 8th with, a nice tier of golfers, difficult ball striking over the last, 2 years. And again, his sample is tough, but, he's kind of out of sight, out of mind for a little bit because of a, car accident outside of his own control. The profile here, this is I would say like a prodigy, but he had, there was some nice little amateur career coming up. Like people know who Bud Cauley was. He was very, very competitive. So it's not like the pedigree is not really strong there. So I'm interested in Bud Cauley. I'm going to find ways to get him in. And again, $6,100 on DraftKings is a nice little piece here too. When he's kind of paired with a couple of my guys here with Hovland, a Bud Cauley sandwich with Hovland and Henley as the bread, you're going to get my attention here. So, and he did. And he also bode well in the putting stuff, as I showed you earlier here, this, lag putting on fast greens. There's a lot of really good Bud Cauley top 10 things that I, put a lot of weight into my model. So that one is interesting to me. And you mentioned a couple too that you like that were deeper down the board. You got any other like longer placement bets?
No, I mean, Cauley was definitely one of them. That's where'd I have it here? God, there's some guys that are just like 300 to 1, and I kind of want to look at some top 40 prices too for guys that might play well here. Gary Woodland's like 500 to 1. Yeah, I know he took a bunch of time off, but Gary Woodland, like top 40. I'm going to have to look at his form a little. I know that's a little rough, but there's some of these guys with just huge numbers that I can make a case for at this course. Phil Mickelson. I'm going to play Phil like top 30, top 40. He's just playing really well right now. I don't care. It's a tough course. He's going to have some long irons in, but he's a savvy old vet. It's not like he's never played here. So yeah, there's going to be some ugly names, I think, that I'm going to be taking, but for sure, Cauley, Phil, Gary Woodland.
Is there some? Where's Woodland and Phil? There's another one that's interesting to me. Griot is interesting to me. Top 40 DFS play. Here's Woodland 175 on DraftKings Caesars. Looks like the best price for G-Dub, former U.S. Open champ. Yeah, I don't know where Phil is. Phil's buried down here. Matthew Pavon. Data's not going to tell you that this makes any sense, but guy seems to show up at difficult golf courses and compete a little bit. It's kind of wild. We keep scanning for Phil.
Somebody asked about Perez earlier. I think he retired. He's the sideline reporter for Live now.
Vic Perez.
I know. I used to love Pat Perez.
Yeah, I know.
The Frenchman who, he's won. He's won on the European Tour a few times. It's been a couple years, but
240 on Phil, by the way. There's a couple things I did that liked Vic Perez.
He wasn't good in the PGA. Last time he made a cut at a major was the Open in 2023. 7-4, Nick. Boy, I love you and your fractions. Thanks. Plus 175. Yeah, I know what it is.
I think I'm. Again, I'm being told to shut up in the chat about it too. But I'm pro Bud Cauley this week. So yeah, 2-1 in that range, I think is fantastic. Bud Cauley. I'm sorry, Victor Perez here is what we're looking at here. Really good putter and fast greens, and is going to keep the ball in play off the tee, right? So he's again, from a skill stacking standpoint, that's why you want to look at the Perez stuff. Neiman to play for one and done. Kind of.
You're not going to use him. I don't think you're going to use him at the Open.
Right.
And so this is kind of the last spot. If you like that he played a little better at the PGA and he's hot, I mean, yeah, it's not a bad play. He's definitely going to make the one and done list for me when I write that up.
I'm considering, because I had kind of, shot my shot with most of the PGA Tour top of the board. I do have Morikawa still. But I still have Rahm, but I think Rahm is pretty interesting for Portrush, and I might want to save Rahm for Portrush. And so that puts Neiman a little bit in play for me for one and done purposes this week. So I'm going to give it a little bit more thought, but I think, again, it's the US Open. You're probably going to have what was Bryson last year was 4.3 to the top. So we're talking about a big prize pool and a big winner pool you want to shoot at the top if you have it. So I don't have Scotty available. I don't have Bryson available, unfortunately. So, going to kind of kick around the tires on the Neimans and Rahms of the world, probably. So
I will agree here. Decimal odds are the best. Fractions are 3 out of 3 in my power rankings. No offense to the English, but so I believe it was some of the taxation stuff, but also the fractional odds is what we fought the Revolutionary War over.
Fight worth having.
Mm-hmm. Shade's Rebellion may have been completely about fractional odds, but yeah, decimal odds are the way to go. They're just so much easier in spreadsheets. It's kind of where, kind of why I love them. Final thoughts. We got a few minutes left before I got to go to a meeting.
I think Scotty Scheffler wins the golf tournament. Not a hot take, but it feels like it's a little bit more of a hot take because it feels like people are really trying to find ways to talk themselves into the next tier. And I get that it's a price specific situation. So I get it. But he's playing so well and he's got it between the ears. He's going to keep the ball in play off the tee. I hear a lot about whatever you think of, driving distance is going to matter. Accuracy is going to matter. You can't tell me like controlling your golf ball sounds like it's going to matter more than anything in a place like this. And who has the best control of their golf ball consistently? And it's Scotty Scheffler. So I know it's boring, but personally, I always love watching history. I always love watching greats ascend and greats be great. People like to hate on that because it's not fun. And I know Scotty's not like supremely exciting, but oh man, he's just the round ball with a grooved, slightly rounded club face. And he seems to have it on a string week in and week out. And to me, it's kind of fun to watch, him land pin high all the time when guys are going to be making big numbers. So I think Scotty Scheffler wins the golf tournament. I'm going to explore Scotty to win by margin at this point. I think are some interesting bets. Like Scotty to win by 3 or more is like 5-1 or 6-1 in some places or something like that. It's still super short, but even Brandel yesterday on Golf Channel talking about so this could be his 2000 US Open. This is it reminds him, he said, of heading to Belmont in 73 for your horse racing. That was Brandel's take, right? So
I just forget how old he is.
Scotty by margin is something that I'm if you want a bigger number, you don't want to get on Scotty sub 3. That's something that I recommend. So he's going to win. And then look, you should be on board for this because then we go to Ireland, Andy, with him needing to win the Grand Slam. And Rory gets cut.
Yeah. Oh.
He doesn't even get a full year of being the only guy.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's like breaking an all-time record in the noon slate, and then somebody at the 3 o'clock slate rushes for 5 more yards.
Totally. So that would be absolutely fascinating. So again, I know what we're talking about is price sensitive, and it's that price is prohibitive for most, and as it should be. It's not a great long-term strategy, but sometimes you have to compartmentalize it and live in the moment. And right now we're dealing with a guy that coming off of slowly pulling away at Quail Hollow, and kind of did the same thing at at Memorial. Like, you're looking for like the highlight of what happened. It just wasn't. He just made par, and everyone else made bogey at a couple of them at some point. And when he needed to make a birdie or two, he did. So that's what I think happens. I think Bryson's distance control bites him a couple different times, and it's just not good enough. So explore without markets or Scotty by margin, and that's what I'm doing. Makes it hard to write a betting article this week. I'll tell you that right now. I don't know really what to do.
That's why I picked the one for contests, because you have to pick guys down the board. You're not going to pick 5 guys that win the event. It's not how it works.
True.
So, all right. Check everything out at betsportsgolf.com. If you want a free membership for a full year, sign up for a new MGM account. It's that easy. Honestly, $30 a month is pretty cheap for what we have over there with all the tools. A month right now gets you the U.S. Open, the Travelers, the Rocket, the John Deere, the Scottish, and the ISCO Championship, formerly Barbasol. Takes you right up to, I don't have it on the graphic, but the Open field will be in the rabbit hole by the time the Scottish Open starts. So you can make, for 1 month, you can make some Open Championship models as well. But we'd encourage you to buy a second month. That helps me even more. So check that out. If you want a free 90 days, you can sign up for drafters. All that info is on betsportsgolf.com or at betsportsgolf on Twitter. We'll check you guys later. Have a good week. Enjoy Oakmont. Let's go course. Rooting for the course. Want to see some grown men cry this weekend. Piss and moan. I want to hear some just salty post-round press conferences from a few guys. We'll see ya.